East India Company, basically a trading company, established itself as a political power in India in the year 1772. Its motto was to derive benefits out of Indian territories rather than improving the lives of the people. The British introduced many expansionist and unjust policies to fulfill their intention of becoming a political power in India. The cumulative effect of these policies, exploitation, and administrative innovations over the years adversely affected the positions of all. The rulers, sepoys, zamindars, peasants, artisans, pundits, Maulvis, etc. were a few among them who were adversely affected. The colonial policies of the East India Company destroyed the traditional economic fabric of the Indian society. The highly unpopular revenue settlements, like the permanent settlement, Mahalwari, Rayatwari, etc., left the peasants impoverished due to heavy taxation. The annexation of Indian states by the company cut off the major source of patronage to the artisans and handicraftsmen, making their lives more miserable. Adding to the misery, British policies also discouraged Indian handicrafts and promoted British goods. Zamindars, the traditional landed aristocrats, often saw their land rights forfeited, resulting into a loss of status for them in the villages. The East India Company's undue interference in the administration of princely states through the policies like subsidiary alliance and doctrine of lapse caused discontentment not only amongst the rulers but also the people. The British never mixed with the Indian people and treated even the upper class Indians with contempt. Such a racist attitude did not go well with educated Indians. They were now aware of the concepts like equality, liberty, and fraternity introduced to them by the Western education. The activities of Christian missionaries were looked upon with suspicion by Indians. The attempts at socio-religious reforms by the British were seen as interference in the social and religious domains of Indian society. The conditions of service in the company's army increasingly came into conflict with the religious beliefs of the sepoys. To a religious Hindu of that time, crossing the sea meant loss of caste. The General Service Enlistment Act, passed in 1856, made it compulsory for an Indian sepoy to serve overseas if required by the government. The Indian sepoys were also unhappy about their emoluments compared to their British counterparts. An Indian sepoy was made to feel a subordinate at every step and was racially discriminated in matters of promotions and privileges. The annexation of Awadh, which was home to many of the sepoys, further inflamed their feelings. These were the reasons which caused great resentment among the sepoys. However, the flashpoint was reached when the soldiers were asked to bite off the paper cartridges for the newly introduced Enfield rifles, which were reportedly greased with beef and pig fat. This was against the religious beliefs of Hindu and Muslim sepoys. In February 1857, the sepoys of 19th Native Infantry at Berhampur refused to use the newly introduced Enfield rifles and broke out in mutiny. The infantry was disbanded in March 1857. On March 29, 1857, the Indian sepoys at Barakpur refused to use the greased cartridges. They were forced to bite the cartridges and load the rifles on a routine drill. Mangal Pandey, a young sepoy of the regiment, gets enraged and attacks his officers. He was later overpowered by the European soldiers of the regiment. The Indian sepoys get inspired by Mangal's act and tension grips in the entire regiment. Mangal Pandey shoots himself to avoid humiliating trial at the army court. However, he survives and is put on trial. He was subsequently hanged. On 9th May 1857, 85 sepoys at Meerut cantonment were stripped of their uniform and sentenced to 10 years of rigorous imprisonment for defying the orders on the issue of greased cartridges. On the next day, the other sepoys mutinied and released their fellow inmates. These sepoys marched towards Delhi and reached Red Fort in the early hours of 11th May. They persuaded Bahadur Shah II, the Mughal emperor, to become the leader of the revolt and proclaimed him as Shahenshah-e-Hindustan. The rebels captured the city of Delhi from the British. Bahadur Shah wrote letters to all the chiefs and rulers of India, urging them to organize a confederacy of the Indian states to fight and replace the British regime. Storm centers of the revolt. At Delhi, the Mughal emperor Bahadur Shah was only a symbolic leader, and the real power was exercised by General Bakht Khan. At Kanpur, the revolt was led by Nana Sahib and his general Tantia Tope. The revolt at Lucknow was led by Begum Hazrat Mahal. Maulvi Ahmadullah of Faiziabad also organized rebellions and fought the British. Khan Bahadur Khan, a descendant of the last independent Rohilla leader, was a British pensioner at Bareilly. The revolt provided him an opportunity to claim his ruling rights over his territory. The revolt at Arha was led by Kuvar Singh, the Zamindar of Jagadishpur. Rani Lakshmi Bai offered a stiff resistance to the British at Jhansi, but she was finally defeated at Gwalior. The British captured Delhi on 20th September 1857. Bahadur Shah was taken as a prisoner and the royal princes were captured and shot dead. One by one, the great leaders of the revolt fell. The revolt was brutally suppressed, and by the end of 1859, the British authority over India was fully re-established. Even though the revolt of 1857 failed to overthrow the British rule, it helped in developing a nationalistic spirit and generated a feeling of oneness among the people of the country, which inspired the subsequent stages of freedom struggle. Brought to you by Compete India's Jeeto Bharat, a one-stop internet-based interactive coaching for civil services exams. For more information, log on to www.jeetobharat.com.